Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. So today's lesson is pretty easy, and inshallah we'll see how easy it is once we go along with the lesson. It's pretty straightforward. There's not much to it, but the application of it, for some weird reason, throughout my experience in teaching, it may be tricky for some, and sometimes it's because we're assuming that we're supposed to be stressed, especially if somebody is not used to articulating those letters. That many times it can be challenging for some, just because they're not used to it. But it is supposed to be, the Qalqalah was actually supposed to be something that was supposed to be making the letters easy. And the reason why those certain letters are actually in a place in where they're shaking, so kind of like what you see right here, this pot, there's fire underneath it, and then this water starts evaporating, and of course the water or whatever is on top will start shaking. That's exactly what it is. I just wanted to be for those visuals. So it's Qalqalah simply means that it's giving a shake. There's some kind of a bounce to it, and that's what Qalqalah means. So when we say تقلقلت القدر, or القدر actually, القدر, that would mean that the pot is shaking. And when we speak about shaking, we don't necessarily shake every single letter. There are certain letters that we give a shake, and those letters are simply the letter qa, ta, ba, jim, and dal. So the reason why we just put them together in a form of that looks like it's one word is simply just to help you remember that order, in order for you not to memorize scrambled letters. So it's basically it. So all you need to do, remember, there are certain letters that you need to shake, just as you shake that pot, or just as the boiling pot shakes the cover. And there are certain letters. So let's see what those letters are. The letter qa, the letter ta, the letter ba, the letter jim, and the letter dal. So all these letters, so those are 5 letters, qa, ta, ba, jim, dal. These 5 letters, what you're going to do in the state of when they have a certain situation, all right? We're going to be considerate of, number 1, pretty much more of a sukoon situation. But here's the thing, is that when we say a sukoon situation, well, the sukoon situation can be a reason for probably that it is actually there, which is what we call sukoon lazim, meaning that it actually is there. The sukoon, we can see it. Let's say we can see it. It exists. All right? The other part is it's not necessarily there, but because when we stop at a word, it's going to by default have the last haraka, or the last letter, have a sukoon on it. So that's when we're going to be considerate over it. Let's do it again. All right, really fast. You got 5 letters that whenever they're there, they're in a state of sukoon, whether it's an official sukoon, here's the word, whether it's an official sukoon or whether it's in a non-official sukoon, meaning a result of stopping, that's when you are going to be considerate over those letters, all right? Which are the 5 letters that we are talking about here. Well, there are two types of different kinds of shakiness, or let's say the different ways of shaking that letter, and in those situations we're going to look at it. It's really simple, really straightforward. You're going to give that small shake. So soghra would mean you're going to give that small bounce or shake, and those are usually when it is وسط الكلمة أو الكلام, which simply means that it could be in the middle of a word or in the middle of a sentence. All right, so you've got one of these letters, it's either in the middle of a word or in the middle of a sentence. So look at this one. This is in the middle of a sentence. فانصب وإلى, فانصب وإلى. right here. It's in the middle of a sentence. Well, it's at the end of a word, but in the middle of a sentence. So in that situation, we're going to consider it a small qalqalah. All right, pretty easy. Small qalqalah. What does small qalqalah mean? Well, it simply means, again, if you have one of the 5 letters, qa, ta, ba, and jim and dal, and it happens to be in the middle of a word or in the middle of a sentence. So let's do it right here. I'm just gonna, right here, we're going to say you've got one of those 5 letters. They're in the middle of a word or sentence. All right, so here we go. Look at what we're going to do. We're going to give the ones that you see in red, which happen to be one of the 5 letters. Qa, ta, ba, jim, dal. You're going to give it a little bounce. Well, let's see how we're going to do it. Yaqdi, yaqa, yaqa, qa, qa, qa. Yuta, 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 yuta. Did you hear that? Yuta'im. Yuba, yuba, yuba. So what you're doing, you're kind of letting your jaw loose on the following letters when you get to them. Like I said, it can be challenging for some, but you'll get it with more and more experience. Well, that one's a small qalqalah. Let's see some more. Yubasirun wa taja, taja, taja. Did you hear that? Taja, ja, ja, ja. That's exactly what qalqalah is. You're giving that little bounce, that little shake. يدخلون يدخلون لينفق. Now you could see all of these examples, the dal or the qaf or the ta or the that they're actually in the middle of a word. But here they're actually in the middle of a sentence, but it can be at the end of a word. So let's see how it looks like. لينفق. Did you hear that? لينفق ذو ولا تشطط ولا تشطط تشطط. Did you hear that? You can feel that vibration. That's another name that we can give instead of saying a bounce. We can probably use the name or another description and call it a vibration that you're given, a wave that you're given to it. لينفق ذو ساعة. And here, ولا تشطط واهدنا فانصب وإلى يخرج من قد أفلح. So again, what you're doing, you're really giving it a vibration, and the only letters that you're giving a vibration for are the letters in the qa, the letter ta, the letter ba, the letter ja, and the letter da. Now, here's one thing you want to keep in note is that there are 2 levels of that vibration. There's the small vibration and there's the larger vibration. Let's see the larger vibration and what it looks like. This is the last slide, you guys. It's pretty easy. The last slide, and you've got that there is a big vibration. What does the big vibration look like? Well, that's basically when you are stopping. You don't have to worry about shadda, you don't have to worry about any of that, because whether there's a shadda or whether there's a sukoon, but if you simply happen to stop at it, all right, that's the whole thing. If you are stopping at a letter, and the letter that you happen to see at the very end, in other words, the last letter that is in that word that you're stopping at, happens to be the last letter, happens to be one of the letters qa, ta, ba, ja, da, qutub, jad, or qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. All right, then what you're going to do, you're going to give it that huge vibration. So we're going to give it a huge vibration, and let's see how it's going to be. Al-falaq, muhit, kasab, bahij, ahad, haqq, وتب الحج أشد. What you're doing in this situation, الفلق. Now careful from saying الفلق and giving it a haraka like it's qa or qu or qi. محيط, and be careful from saying محيط and then giving it at the end. So محيط, كسب, بهيج, أحد. Look at that one. حق, حق وتب وتب الحج الحج أشد in what you're giving أشد أشد. All right, now you want to be careful with a number of things here. Is that like I said, it's going to be a major qalqala. You're going to let your tongue loose, and the fastest way to see those qalqala in where when you actually read it, it actually makes it easier for you to recognize when you actually see it in the words. And we're going to choose the fastest surah to find the fastest surah to find Al-Qalqala in is really none other but Surah Al-Buruj. Surah Al-Buruj happens to be the easiest surah to find all those qalqalas in it. All right, so let's see right here. وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ Buruj. Did you hear that? Now that's a big qalqala. Why? Well, you happen to find the letter Jim. It's one of the qa, ta, ba, jim, dal, and you also happen to stop at that word, meaning you're going to give it that big qalqala, and regardless of whether it had a sukoon or not, or shadda or not, because yes, you might say, well, it doesn't have a sukoon. Well, by default, if you stop at it, although it's not an official sukoon, but since you stop at it, that is going to be like it's an official sukoon right there. So right here, you could see it. Now the difference, let me go back to the previous slide and comment something here, is that the ones that have a shadda, you're just going to remember that that's the same letter twice. So watab, watab, and then you're gonna say the letter, and then you're going to say the other letter with that qalqala. So you just to keep on note with that shadda, that you're going to give it a little more of that timing in order to pronounce it. Let's see what this one. وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ. Did you hear it? That's it. That's the qalqala. And the thing is that this surah, and in fact in this copy of the Quran, for those that are struggling with their tajweed, you see every single one that is light blue, and you can actually get this Quran. You just print color-coded tajweed Quran. You just write down color-coded tajweed Quran, and you can actually use the color codes if you're still struggling with the official rules of tajweed. All you need to do is just Google color-coded tajweed Quran, and you'll get there two kinds of scripts. There's the Indo-Pakistani script, and there's the Uthmani script. So the Indo-Pakistani script uses a different kind of a font and slightly different writing at times, but the Uthmani script, which is the script that you see right here in front of you, all right, and what they'll do is they'll give you the sign that something is a qalqala by making it blue, light blue at least, because the dark blue is going to be a different rule. So look at this. They made you, let me delete that one. They made you all the qalqalas in light blue. So for those visuals, the people that are visual, you could use that. You could use that as a way to help you kind of learn how to do it at first, and then you'll get used to it. All right, so let's see right here. قُتِلَ أَصْحَابُ الْأُخْدُودِ أُخْدُودِ, and here it is. النَّارِ ذَاتِ الْوَقُودِ إِذْ هُمْ عَلَيْهَا قُعُودٌ. Now notice that you've got a couple of dads right there. Remember, the qalqala letters are qa, ta, ba, jim, dal. Pretty straightforward. وَهُمْ عَلَى مَا يَفْعَلُونَ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ شُهُودٌ. Notice here. وَمَا نَقَمُوا مِنْهُمْ إِلَّا أَن يُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَمِيدِ. Now, all of these are actually the big qalqala. Why? Remember, it's at the end, and we're stopping at it. Whether you're completing it, meaning whether you're completing a sentence, or whether, well, no, sorry, take that back. So whether right here, if you are right here, it's at the end of a sentence, All right, it's going to be qalqala. And it's going to be qalqala whether you're completing or whether you're stopping. But if you're continuing, this does not become big qalqala anymore, and it becomes the smaller qalqala if you're continuing. The big qalqala is only going to be if you're stopping and it happens to be the last letter. All right? The little qalqala is going to be if you're continuing, whether continuing in a word or continuing in a sentence. So let's see the difference if I were to continue. All right? Let's see how it's going to be. وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ. Now, be careful. وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ. I didn't say وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ I didn't make a qalqala for it because in the situation that I'm reading in, this happened to be a kasra. So I'm not gonna give it here a qalqala because this one right here, you can't apply the light blue because I didn't stop at it, so it doesn't apply, or it does not fit the conditions of qalqala. So let's just see some more and actually see the rules right here. Jannatun tajri. Did you hear that? Tajri. This is a smaller qalqala. All right, look at this one. Innahu yubdi'u wa yu'id. Let's see this one. Inna batasha rabbika lashadid. Did you hear that? There's a couple of qalqalas, you could see that. All right, look at all those qalqalas that are actually in the ayah, and you could see that they're all actually at the very end right there. Those are all big qalqalas, except this one is going to be a small qalqala because it's in the middle, and here a small qalqala. And this one, if you stop at it again, right there, big qalqala, all those at the end are big qalqalas, regardless, notice that one, regardless of whether it had a dhamma in it or whether it had kasra, regardless, because anyways you're stopping at it. All right, because anyways you're stopping at it. So the big qalqala is if you're stopping at a letter of qa, ta, ba, jim, dal, that would be a big qalqala, and the smaller qalqala would be if it's qa, ta, ba, jim, dal in the middle of a word or in the middle of a sentence. Pretty straightforward and pretty easy. I'm sure everybody memorized the rule by now. All right, let's see if we can actually find some more. Look at, even though we actually found some in Surah Al-Tariq right there. Look at Surah Al-Tariq. All right, let's see. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الطَّارِقُ النَّجْمُ الثَّاقِبُ. Notice النَّجْمُ الثَّاقِبُ. Notice قِب, قِب, b. Did you hear that? That's exactly what qalqala is. النَّجْمُ. It's totally different than saying النَّجْمُ. 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 And the reason why those letters, that's because they're actually they're usually the letters of shidda. You've got a number of letters. The shidda letters are ajad, qatlin, bakat, okay? But you've got another qatlin, bakat, okay, here we go. Those are the letters of shidda, but some letters like the ja, the jim, the qaf, the ta, the ba, all right, those letters, they happen to me. Let's kind of go over really quick. All right, we're just gonna share a white screen and you'll see something. All right, you could see one thing here. Let me just grab that one. Okay, and you could see it, and I'm gonna just, hopefully I can remember to resume sharing. All right, so the way we could see it, it's going to be really easy, is that the reason why those letters, remember those letters where we said certain letters have descriptions, and we said there are certain letters at jid, qatin, and bakat, right? And we said those are the letters that are shidda. Shidda would mean you're giving them stress in where you're using your upper jaw and lower jaw, and when you say it, you can't like right away. If that jim is continuing and it's not stopping at your, at the upper and lower jaw together at the end of the letter, well, that means you're saying the letter wrong. Or what? I'm not sure. Okay. If you're saying that means you're not saying it right. So those letters, they happen to be those letters that require those two jaws to stop at one point. But here's one thing, is that there are certain letters, let's kind of give some colors here. So the Arab, in order to help that stress release, they did this. All right, for certain letters, which is this letter right there, qutub jad, these letters right there, they basically gave them the release and they gave them the qalqalah. All right, they gave them the qalqalah. As for the letter kaf and ta, they gave them hams. And the letters hams, they basically give a breath push. I think we did that one before. The letters that require a breath push are basically ha, tha, hu, sha, sun, fa, sa, kat. All right, those are the letters that require a breath push in order for them to be audible. All right, yet the letters ja, jim, dal, qaf, ta, ba, those require a vibration. Why is that so? Well, simply because these letters, by default, they happen to be the letters of shiddah. They happen to be very, very hard on the jaw to pronounce. And that's why the Arab, it's like, okay, well, they're really hard to pronounce. They'll just let them go smoothly out. And with certain group of letters, the smooth exit they gave was the vibration. The other smooth exit that they would give out is basically the hems, to give it that breath push that once it is released. So pretty straightforward, not really hard. Let's go back to the qalqalah that we were actually doing. And right there, you could see, for example, this letter right here, ذات الصدع والأرض ذات الصدع والأرض ذات الصدع صدع. Now here, you look at that dal and you're going to give it that qalqalah sughra. Why sughra? Because you're not stopping at it. Simple as that. If you're not stopping at it, it's not qalqalah kubra. It's not the big qalqalah. The big qalqalah would only be in cases that you're stopping at it, and that's basically it. Well, let's see. We've got a couple of words here. Right here. سنقرئك. Did you hear that? سنقرئك. Here. الذي يصلى النار الكبرى كبرى قد أفلح. Did you hear that? That shake for the letter da. And that's basically it. قد أفلح من تزكى. Let's move forward really quick and see. Look at this one. There's only وزرابي مبثوثة. وزرابي Did you hear that? مبثوثة. Let's see for more. Let's go for more. And these ones, they're usually audible and everybody recognize it. And of course, those are والفجر حجر بعاد. And let's see this one. إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثل. Notice here, you guys, this is the one that we were saying. This is a continuing, even though like it's at the very end, but it's not an issue of end or beginning. It's an issue, are you stopping at it or are you not stopping at it? That's the first thing that you want to consider. Am I stopping at that letter, or is it in the middle of a word or in the middle of a sentence? And of course, if it has a sukoon. All right? If it has a sukoon, and if it's in the middle of a word of a sentence, then that would make it qalqalah sughra, small qalqalah, small vibration. If it's at the end of a word and you're stopping at it, and then that's going to be a major qalqalah kubra. Let's see this one. التي لم يخلق مثلها. Did you hear that? Let's just assume we're gonna stop at the word يخلق. Okay? التي لم يخلق. And you heard it clearly. يخلق, because I stopped at it. But if I were to continue, because it's going in smoothly with the rest of the sentence, let's see how it sounds differently. التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد. في البلاد. And here, يخلق مثلها. يخلق مثلها. Did you hear that? You heard a qalqalah, but definitely not the same as if I were to say التي لم يخلق. Did you hear that? Vibration was clearly thicker. And that's it for today, inshallah. I think it's pretty straightforward. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And inshallah, we'll continue next week, where actually, good news, we're almost done with all the rules of tajweed. We still got the letter Ra, and the letter Ra happens to be a little bit more detailed, because you've got a huge number of letters that have the ruling of it. You know, I'm excited to show you that one, since we came across that one. Look at that one. يا أيتها النفس Did you hear that? مطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية. Notice here. فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us all this. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Rabbi, make us from those that are from النفس المطمئنة, and make us from those that will be told فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. Ameen. And jazakum Allah khairan, everybody. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.